My dad's heart gave out at 4:17 on a Sunday afternoon. By 8 that same night, his wife had already changed every lock on the front door. I found her standing in the hallway when I came down with my overnight bag, and she said the line she must have rehearsed the whole drive home from the hospital. "You need to pack up and go tonight. This house is mine now." I had a gym bag, a laptop, and a set of keys to a building she didn't even know existed. I zipped my bag, looked her dead in the eye, and walked right past her without saying a word. She had no clue what she'd just started. This is a story about grief, family betrayal, and an inheritance nobody saw coming. So if you're new here, hit subscribe and tap the bell because you don't want to miss where this goes. And if you're already part of this family, comment your city and the time right now and share this with someone who needs a little karma in their life today. Let's get into it. My name is Claire Sullivan. 3 weeks before my dad died, I drove 45 minutes out to his place for Sunday dinner, same as I had every single week for 6 straight years. My stepmom Denise always made pot roast and always set 3 places at the table. Mine was never one of them. I'd stopped saying anything about it a long time ago. I'd come in through the side door, dig my own plate out of the cabinet, and eat at the corner spot where the placemat never quite fit. My dad, Frank, looked smaller than I remembered that night. His color was off, almost gray, like something had been quietly draining out of him for months. His hand shook a little when he lifted his fork, the kind of shake you'd miss if you weren't watching for it. He'd been losing weight for months, and Denise kept telling everyone at church he just wasn't eating enough. But I'd already checked his medical records online weeks earlier, the way I quietly kept tabs on him without ever telling a soul. I knew it was his heart, and I knew it was serious. Nobody else in that house was hearing the whole truth about how serious it really was. Across the table, my stepsister Brooke had her phone propped against the salt shaker, barely looking up all night. She was 23 and still living at home, which Denise called figuring herself out, and I called none of my business. Halfway through dinner, my dad set his fork down. "Claire, did you ever get that building thing sorted out?" Denise cut in before I could answer. "Frank. Not at the table." He looked at me. I looked at him. He picked his fork back up. After dinner, I did the dishes, same as always. On the counter sat a stack of mail, an electric bill, an insurance statement, and one unopened envelope from a law office addressed to Frank Sullivan. Denise swept the whole pile into a drawer before I could read the return address. "Just junk," she said. That was the last Sunday dinner I ever ate in that house. If you've ever felt like a guest inside your own family, stay with me, this one's about to get wild. My real mom, Diane, passed away when I was 9. She had a quiet laugh and this way of folding towels like she was thinking about something 1,000 miles away. I remember the laundry more than I remember the funeral, honestly. After she was gone, my dad didn't have the first clue what to do with a grieving 9-year-old who cried in the bathtub every night. He wasn't a talk about your feelings kind of guy. He was a numbers guy, so he did the one thing he actually knew how to do. He taught me math. Every single Saturday morning, he'd load me into his old pickup truck and we'd drive around town looking at houses. Not to buy. Just to look. He'd pull up in front of some place with a for sale sign and ask, "What's this one worth, kiddo?" I'd guess. He'd correct me. Then he'd walk me through exactly why, square footage, comparable sales, interest rates, how a north-facing kitchen loses value in a winter market. I didn't understand half of it, but I understood he was talking to me like I mattered, and that was enough. By 11, I could read a mortgage statement faster than most grown adults. "Money can't fix everything, kiddo," he told me once, idling in front of a run-down colonial with a cracked driveway. "But it takes care of a whole lot of stuff people like to pretend has nothing to do with money." That same year he married Denise, who came with a 3-year-old daughter, Brooke, and a smile that covered every room like fresh paint. Within 6 months, my bedroom was repainted pink and turned into Brooke's playroom. I got moved to the smallest room in the house next to the garage. "Denise had it rough before," my dad said. "Be patient." I was 11. I was patient. Denise wasn't a movie villain. She never yelled, never threw anything, never locked me in a closet. She was worse than that. She was thorough. Within 2 years, every picture of my mom had started disappearing, first from the mantel to the hallway, then to the upstairs landing, then finally into a box in the attic labeled old frames in Denise's own handwriting. In their place went matching studio portraits of Denise, my dad, and Brooke, all three in navy sweaters from some department store photo shoot. I wasn't in a single one. I hadn't even been invited. She controlled the money too, quietly and completely, a spreadsheet of every grocery run, every gas receipt, every subscription presented to my dad on the first of the month like a board meeting. It was the one meeting I was never once invited to. When I finally asked my dad about it, he told me Denise's first husband had left her with nothing, no savings, no car, no credit, and that fear had never really left her. I felt for her for a while. But sympathy runs out fast when someone uses your understanding as a doorway to keep pushing you further out of your own family. By 13, my name was the one always missing off the Christmas cards. When a neighbor once asked why I wasn't in the family photo, Denise laughed it off. "Oh, Claire's just so busy with school." I was standing right there. My dad heard it. He opened his mouth, then closed it and walked out to the garage. That was the year I stopped waiting for anyone to fix it for me. If this is hitting close to home, drop the age you were in the comments when you first noticed something like this in your own family. The summer I turned 15, my dad drove me down to his office on a Saturday morning. He shut the door, sat me across from his desk, and opened a plain folder with my name typed on the tab. "I started this 2 years ago," he said. $6,000 in an index fund. It's already yours." The balance had grown past 7,000. I didn't understand compound growth yet, not really, but I understood the weight of what he'd just done. He was quietly building something for me that Denise could never touch. "Let's keep this between us for now," he said, holding up a hand before I could even respond. "Not because it's some big secret, because she worries about anything she can't put on that spreadsheet of hers." He taught me to read a quarterly statement, showed me how to check a fund's performance against the market, and handed me a cheap pocket calculator with a cracked plastic case and buttons that stuck. "Keep this thing," he said. "Always run your own numbers, Claire. Never let anybody else do the math for you." I still have that calculator, sitting on my desk right now as I'm telling you this. At 18, he started transferring shares of a downtown office building into my name, one he'd bought decades earlier, back when the block was rough and the price was cheap. "This building's got your name on it for good now," he told me. That same year, I packed 2 suitcases and left for college 5 hours away. No slam doors, no big goodbye. Denise waved from the kitchen window. Brooke never looked up from the TV. My dad and I talked every Sunday morning, 20 minutes, always about the fun, the building, the market. Numbers were our language, and it worked. Every visit home, something else quietly vanished. My old room became a yoga studio. The garage became Brooke's art studio. Even the hallway photos disappeared. 21, I graduated at the top of my class in business finance, and the fund my dad had planted with $6,000 had already grown past $70,000. By 27, I owned that downtown building outright, worth more than every house on my dad's street combined. The same month I signed my first office lease, Denise finished turning my old bedroom into her yoga studio. Neither of us ever mentioned it. Okay, buckle up because this is where it starts moving fast. If you haven't liked this video yet, now's the time. My dad was diagnosed with severe heart failure the spring I turned 31. Getting in to see him suddenly required Denise's approval. He's resting. He doesn't want visitors right now. Finally, I drove over unannounced, and she met me at the door. "Your dad needs calm. Showing up like this isn't calm." She shut the door in my face. I called my Aunt Josephine that night, 68 years old, sharp as a tack, the only person who'd never fallen for Denise's routine. "She's been telling everyone you're too busy to visit," Joe said. "She also got your dad to sign a financial power of attorney last Tuesday. She's on all his accounts now. I felt the floor tilt, not over money, my own assets were untouchable, but because I recognized the pattern. Denise wasn't just managing his care. She was managing access, building a wall, and my dad was too sick to see it going up. 3 weeks later, he had a second stroke. Denise called everyone, the cousins, the neighbors, the church group. She never called me. I found out from a hospital nurse who recognized my last name and used the emergency contact my dad had listed years before Denise ever got the chance to change it. He died on a Sunday. Of course it was a Sunday. The hospital called at 4:17 that afternoon. I drove 3 hours in the dark, thinking about the last time I'd seen him through the kitchen window, one raised palm, held still until I pulled out of the driveway. I hadn't been allowed inside that day. When I got to the house, cars already lined the driveway, neighbors, a couple of cousins, the porch light glowing. Through the front window I could see Denise in the kitchen, arranging white flowers into a glass vase, already dressed in black, hair pinned up perfectly, looking like a woman who'd rehearsed this exact moment for a long time. I went in through the side door and up to what used to be my bedroom. The yoga mat was still rolled out on the floor. I sat down on it with my duffel bag in my lap. Denise appeared in the doorway within 5 minutes, both hands braced on the frame. "You need to pack up and go tonight. This house is mine now." I looked around at the mat, the diffuser, the little speaker on the wall. None of it had been mine for years anyway. "Okay," I said. I picked up my bag and headed downstairs, passing Brooke on the staircase. She stood 3 steps up, phone clutched against her chest, saying absolutely nothing. She looked at me the way you look at someone leaving a building you already know they're never coming back to. I checked into a roadside motel 4 miles down the highway and sat in the parking lot for a good 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. The key to my building sat in my coat pocket the entire time. I could feel the edge of it through the lining. I could have told Denise everything right there in the hallway. But some truths just land better when they arrive on schedule. Comment schedule if you're still with me, because the will reading is worth every second of the wait. The funeral was small. Denise and Brooke sat front and center. There were exactly 3 chairs reserved for family. I sat in the 3rd row. Aunt Jo arrived, walked straight past the front row, sat beside me and whispered, "Your dad prepared everything. Trust me." On the church steps afterward, Denise announced to everyone that the house was hers, exactly like Frank wanted. She never once looked at me. What she didn't announce was the meeting she'd already scheduled with the estate attorney. Denise started her inventory the very next morning. An appraiser put the house at $400,000. The bank confirmed $150,000 in joint savings, and nothing else under Frank Sullivan's name. "Didn't he used to talk about owning some building downtown?" Brooke asked at the kitchen table. Denise went very still. She called the attorney's office demanding an earlier meeting. For the first time since my dad died, I wasn't the one who was afraid. I stayed at that motel for 5 nights. $52 a night, a sagging mattress, a pink vacancy sign flickering through the curtains every time a truck rolled past on the highway. Grief doesn't care how much money is sitting under your name. It shows up at 3 in the morning and sits right down on the edge of your bed. On the 3rd morning I called my attorney Mitchell Ford. He confirmed everything, the downtown building fully in my name. An index fund now worth roughly $4 million. A second real estate portfolio spread across 7 properties in 3 states, worth another $6 million. Total value under your name as of your dad's death is right around $31 million, Mitchell said. None of it touches his estate. "I know," I said. I just needed to hear it out loud. "Is Denise going to fight it?" "Yes. She won't win." If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of story we live for. Smash that like button and drop your city and the time you're watching because I love seeing where this lands. That night I went through the portfolio the way I did every quarter, not because I needed to, but because it still felt like talking to my dad. The building he'd bought back when the block was nothing but a taco truck and cracked pavement was now worth $21 million on its own. The fund he'd planted with $6,000 had turned into millions through years of slow, boring compounding. $31 million, and not 1 cent of it inside Frank Sullivan's estate. Denise was fighting over a $400,000 house while the daughter she'd shoved out the door was sitting on a fortune nearly 80 times bigger. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired and I missed my dad more than anything. She called me that Monday, sweet and careful, the exact voice she used whenever she needed something. "Did your dad ever mention a building?" I told her everything would be explained Thursday. She called back 3 times in 7 minutes when I didn't answer right away. If you've ever had someone who only calls when they need something from you, you already know that tone. It shows up with zero apology and lands straight on whatever they need. Aunt Jo called the next morning, no hello, straight to it. Denise pulled $95,000 out of the joint savings account yesterday. I sat straight up in bed. How? Used that power of attorney your dad signed last spring. Walked into the branch with the document and the death certificate, asked for a cashier's check. That power of attorney died the second Dad did, I said. It's not valid anymore. You know that. I know that. The teller apparently did not. I called Mitchell within the hour. He confirmed the transaction had already posted. $95,000 pulled using a legal document that expired the moment my dad's heart stopped. A power of attorney ends automatically the moment someone dies, Mitchell said. The bank could be on the hook for honoring it, but more than that, this tells us something about her state of mind. What's that? She's panicking. She's grabbing whatever she can reach because on some level, she already suspects there's something she can't. He pulled the transaction records. Funeral costs came to just over $9,000. That left close to $86,000 completely unaccounted for. I understood fear makes people do things logic can't explain. But understanding something isn't the same as excusing it. $95,000 pulled from a dead man's account with an expired legal document isn't fear. It's theft dressed up in black and pearls. Comment building below if you're still here, because the room at that will reading is about to go dead silent. The law office sat above a dentist's office on Main Street, across from a bakery that filled the whole block with the smell of cinnamon rolls every morning at 7. Conference room had a long oval table, green leather chairs, and a clock on the wall that ticked louder than it had any right to. Denise arrived first, black blazer, pressed slacks, same pearl earrings from the funeral. Brooke followed in a gray cardigan, clutching a small handbag like it was armor. They sat at the head of the table like the seating chart had already been decided. Aunt Jo came in quietly and sat halfway down with her hands folded. I walked in last, Mitchell beside me carrying a leather briefcase with brass clasps. "Who is this?" Denise asked. "My attorney. I'm also a beneficiary." The attorney, Harold Whitmore, read the will slowly. To Denise, the house free and clear plus the joint savings. To Brooke, $15,000 from an education fund. "That concludes the probate estate," Harold said. "That's exactly what I expected," Denise said. "However," Harold continued, "I'm required to tell everyone here that this represents only part of what Frank Sullivan built during his lifetime. Over the past 16 years, he carried out a series of fully documented, legally notarized transfers to his daughter, Claire Sullivan." Denise shot to her feet, her chair scraping the hardwood like a struck match. "What transfers? I was his wife for 20 years. What is going on?" Mitchell stood, opened the brass clasps on his briefcase, and laid 3 folders on the table, one at a time. "This is the deed for a 5-story commercial building downtown, originally purchased by Frank Sullivan. Between his daughter's 18th and 27th birthdays, ownership was transferred in stages, each one filed with the county and backed by gift tax paperwork." Second folder. "This is the investment portfolio held in Claire Sullivan's name, index funds, reinvested earnings, and equity across 7 additional properties in 3 states." Third folder. "And this is a full report of everything, prepared by a CPA the week Frank Sullivan passed." He rested his hand on it. The total is approximately $31 million. None of it goes through probate. None of it belongs to Denise. Nobody moved. Brooke's mouth fell open, both hands pressed flat on the table like the number had tilted the whole room sideways. Aunt Jo, who already knew, simply nodded once. "You knew," Denise said, turning on me. "You sat in that house every Sunday and ate my food, and you knew. You made me pack up and leave 4 hours after he died," I said. "You changed the locks before his body was even cold. You want to talk about what people knew." Mitchell wasn't finished. He laid one more sheet on the table. 9 days after Frank Sullivan's death, $95,000 was withdrawn using a power of attorney that expired automatically at his death. Funeral costs totaled just over $9,000. That leaves close to $86,000 unaccounted for. "I needed it for the funeral," Denise said. "I'd strongly recommend consulting your own lawyer before saying anything further," Harold said gently. Denise dropped back into her chair, all the fight gone out of her voice. 20 years. I cooked for him. I cleaned for him. I sat in that hospital 11 hours the night of his first stroke. Does none of that count for anything? "The house is yours," Harold said. "He didn't leave you with nothing. He gave her $31 million. He gave her those things while he was still alive," Harold said. "They were his to give." Aunt Jo finally spoke up. "Frank loved you, Denise. But he loved Claire too, and he knew you'd never share willingly. So he made sure she was taken care of long before it ever came to this." "You knew," Denise whispered. "He told me himself years ago. He wasn't being cruel about it. He was just being honest." "I didn't know," Denise said. "I didn't know any of this." And there it was, the truest sentence she'd spoken in 20 years. She never knew because she'd never once asked. I stood up. "I didn't come here to take anything from anyone. Everything under my name has been mine for years. I came so everyone in this room would hear the whole truth, not part of it." I looked at Denise. "From today, I won't be calling, visiting, or explaining myself. If you or Brooke ever need to reach me, go through Mitchell." I turned to Aunt Jo. "Thank you." She just nodded. The door I turned back. "You said the house is yours. Then keep it." "I never needed it." I closed the door, not a slam, just firm and final. Out in the parking lot, I sat behind the wheel for a long time, staring at a rust stain shaped almost like a question mark on the drainpipe across the lot. And then I finally cried. Not over the money, not over Denise, not over 20 years of missing Christmas cards and a yoga mat where my bed used to be. I cried for my dad because he knew this day was coming, the locks, the 3 chairs, the numbers finally speaking for themselves at that table. He'd spent 16 quiet years preparing for it, one small transfer at a time, each one a little act of love disguised as paperwork. He couldn't stop Denise from being exactly who she was. He loved her anyway in his own way, and he chose to stay. I understood that, even if I couldn't fully forgive it. But he made absolutely sure that when this day came, I'd be standing on ground nobody could ever take away from me. 3 weeks later, Denise hired her own lawyer to fight it. He called her back within a week. "There's no case here." Frank knew exactly what he was doing. The $86,000 was returned within 10 days. Brooke texted me 3 days after that, the first message she'd ever sent me directly in her life. I didn't know what she was going to do that night. "I'm sorry." I read it twice and didn't reply. Not out of anger. I just didn't know what to say yet to someone who'd watched me walk down that staircase with a duffel bag and hadn't said a single word. The rest of the family shifted fast. My dad's cousins, Walter and Gary, both called to check on me, something neither of them had ever done before. Neighbors who'd been at the funeral reached out one by one. The whole story Denise had spent years building, "Claire doesn't care, Claire's too busy, Claire never visits," collapsed under the weight of 3 folders on a conference table. For the first time in 20 years, Denise found herself standing outside the family she'd worked so hard to control. If you've ever walked away from someone who only loved you on their own terms, comment free below. 6 months later, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the 7th floor, overlooking a public park. Nothing fancy, creaky hardwood floors, real counter space in the kitchen, 2 east-facing windows that filled the living room with warm morning light right where I set up my desk. That spring, I opened my own firm and called it Sullivan Financial Group. Not sentimental, my dad would have hated sentimental. Just a statement about where everything I knew had come from. My best friend Rachel, the one person who showed up at that motel with takeout and never once asked me to explain myself, helped me pick out the office furniture. A bank officer named Sam, someone Mitchell had worked with for years, helped trace the rest of that $95,000 withdrawal so it couldn't quietly happen to somebody else's family the way it almost happened to mine. Aunt Jo came for dinner once a month with bread from the bakery and wine she swore was on sale. He used to say you were the only person in this family who understood interest rates, she told me once. He said that about everyone he liked, I said. No, she smiled. Just you. I kept exactly one thing from that old house, not the photos, not the furniture. Just the calculator sitting on my desk beside my laptop, cracked case and all. Denise never called again. Brooke sent one more letter. I put it in a drawer, not ready yet, and finally understood that not being ready isn't the same as not caring. One Tuesday morning, sitting at my desk with the sun coming through the window, I picked up that old calculator. It was heavier than it looked, warm from the light. Typed in 3100000. 31 million. The screen just held the number. No judgment, no applause. Just math the same way it had always been, on the Saturday drives in that office with the desk lamp humming, and now years later at a desk all my own. My dad told me once, idling in front of that colonial with the cracked driveway, money can't fix everything, kiddo, but knowing how to count it means nobody ever gets to blindside you. He was right. Nobody ever did. Not Denise, not the locks, not the 3 chairs at that funeral. But I would have traded every dollar on that screen just to hear him say it one more time. My name is Claire Sullivan. My dad didn't leave me money. He left me something money can't buy, the ability to never need anyone's permission to exist. If this story meant anything to you, hit like, subscribe if you're new here, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment with your city, the time you're watching, and tell me, have you ever found out the truth about someone in your own family right when you least expected it? I'll see you in the next one.